Welcome back to the Enlightened Misfits podcast. I am your host, Lauren, and in today's episode, I have Eesha. She is a PhD candidate in philosophy. Welcome, Eesha. I'm so happy to have you with us here.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm looking forward to this chat.
Yes, of course. Okay, so let's begin kind of where your awakening started in 2015. Like, what happened during that contact experience, and how did it kind of set the stage for your mission here as a Galactic ambassador?
Yeah, diving straight in. I love it. So in 2015, yeah, I mean, I just, I was doing regular stuff. I was studying engineering and, had a relationship and was doing all of that. And then, yeah, I mean, what happened was a number of life changes happened quite quickly in quick succession. And that led me to being very, very open to whatever was out there. Part of that was heartbreak. Part of that was my life just falling apart. Part of that was not knowing what my next steps were and sort of having this massive shift in my future, what I perceive would have been my future. And so when all of that happened at once, it was an opportunity for me to really lean on my spirituality. And when I did that, there was this one pivotal moment where I remember just laying there and I said, basically, hey, universe, I want to be in service, whatever that might look like, whatever that highest pathway is for me, you tell me what that is. And that's what kickstarted my first channeling experience. And so I didn't really have any experience of what, I mean, I wasn't even listening to like Bashar or like any of those other people. I'd barely even heard about it. I was so fresh to the whole thing. And here I was having this channeling experience. So that's really what started that. And then that, of course, set off a catalyst of a whole number of other events, which is now a decade later, and here I am. So yeah.
Can you kind of, so for the listeners that don't know what maybe a galactic ambassador are or is, and can you kind of explain, or I should say, galactic consciousness, can you kind of explain like to the listeners what that is?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So let's take it back a step because I think in order to understand galactic consciousness, you need to understand consciousness in general, right? And consciousness itself is very vast. There's a lot of different facets to it. We, of course, are very familiar with human consciousness because that is the way that we experience reality. We experience it through our five senses. We experience it through the things that we see in the world, the emotions that we feel, the way that we perceive reality. Now, that in itself, that's quite a big experience. But if you really, take an objective step back from that and you recognize that actually you're only experiencing reality through the interface of those senses. So the best example that I could give you is like, you can look in the sky and you can see a cloud. You can see it there, you can see the color of it, you might even know if it's about to rain, but you will never experience what it's like to be the cloud because you're only ever going to experience looking at the cloud from the human experience. So the interface that you make with that cloud in the sky is through your eyes, your ears, your senses, not even someone else's, not even one person and another person is going to have the same experience of that same cloud. So so let's widen the lens again, okay? So we experience a very limited view of consciousness through the senses. What's to say that there aren't lots of different forms of consciousness experiencing life in different ways? One very common example of that is trees, plant consciousness. They actually have their own consciousness, and there are examples of this that have now been researched. For example, I have a device at home called the Music of the Plants device, and this research has been done in the last 50 years by the Damanhur community in Italy, where they've actually been researching the ability of these plants to send out signals. And they've done some really fascinating experiments where they've done things like build a greenhouse and they let the plants control when they open the shades, when they turn the water on, when they let people in. And one time there were these rowdy teenagers who came for a tour and they were just really like, skeptical and cynical, and the plants locked them out. So these plants, it's very fascinating. I could spend the whole hour just telling you about the plants, but Like everything has consciousness. And you know, these plants, they're able to communicate through this music, this sound, this frequency that they emit. I'm very blessed to actually have one of these machines at home, so I'm able to hook it up to my lilies and my plants at home, and I can hear the responsiveness that they have to the world around them, which is really cool. So that's an example of consciousness. So you've got plant consciousness, you've got human consciousness. What about animal consciousness? That's another type of consciousness. So if we keep expanding and expanding and expanding, what's to say there isn't a galactic consciousness, right? I mean, who's to say that in another dimension, in another reality, I mean, consciousness is so vast. Let's not pretend like we know it all because we are so far from that point. So what if there are so many different types of consciousnesses out there and we are just learning to expand ourselves to be able to perceive that? And that is where the spiritual aspect of it comes in, because when you go beyond the five senses, you know, people talk about the sixth sense, opening the third eye, opening your heart chakra, going into meditation. These are all things that help you to expand your consciousness. And when you expand your consciousness, you then can have things like telepathic contact with non-human intelligences, including intergalactic beings.
Right. Yeah. I love that. So now can you kind of talk a little bit about like is there I know a little bit about it, so I'm going to try to ask the best questions I can. So is there like different I don't even know if this is the right word, but I'm just going to say different galactic races. Like
Mhm.
how can you kind of share about um the communication between maybe like the human versus non-human? Is that even a thing? Like what's
Yeah,
the experience?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm
So
trying to trying to ask the questions. I'm like, I don't even know if this is a lot of them. I'm like, come on, spirit, help me like ask, like say what I need to say. So I'm
yeah.
hearing there is there a non-human versus human and what experiences like what is the difference with that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, in spiritual terms, I refer to these beings as star family, and I really do feel that they are family. In a more
Okay.
scientific lens, the more accepted term in that field is connecting with non-human intelligences, or NHIs is the term that people use for that.
Okay.
And so, yes, these beings do exist. They are of non-human origin, and non-human can also include plant consciousness, animal consciousness, jellyfish consciousness. There's lots of things in that. But my personal interest is in the galactic side of things, and they do fall under that umbrella of non-human intelligences. I do refer to them as my family because I feel a very close connection to them. And yes, there are lots of different races. So I myself have communicated with at least 20 different races myself. Some of the commonly known ones are the beings from the Pleiades star system, the Arcturus star system, which is the Arcturians. You've got people from well, draconians are commonly heard of that people know about. There's heaps. Andromedans. You've got your Alpha Centauri. There's so many out there. Some of them are like non-humanoid forms as well. And what I mean by that is like some of them have similar features to us, like two arms, two legs, sort of humanoid sort of form, and others look nothing like us. And so that's a different kettle of fish as well. But yeah, to answer your question, there's so many different beings out there. And you know, people ask me this all the time, Isha, how many are there? And I say, gosh, you know, I mean, I've personally connected with over 20 different races, and that's just my personal interactions of the beings that I've met. I've heard of at least 180 of them. And you know, haven't had the time to connect with every single one of them, but I would say there are thousands, probably thousands, because I think there's like the same way that we have so many different species or races within just not species, we have different races on Earth. Imagine how wide the galaxy is. So I think that leaves it very, very open.
Yeah, I was always curious of like, you know, I haven't got too far into it, but I know my husband, he is all into that and he's like, you know, do you know this and do that? I was like, I have no. No, it's like it's so interesting, but I'm like, no. Like he listens to I forget what the now that I can't even think of. Oh, ancient he like
Ancient Aliens, is
yeah,
that the one?
yes,
Yeah.
he
Yeah,
could
I
fall
love that show
asleep to
too.
that. And and like it I did one day I was like, what is he listening to? And he like just had took a nap, and I was like, what in the hell are you listening to? And then it's like Ancient Aliens. I was like, oh, of course. Like he's like, it's so calming. I'm like, it's but it's interesting. So I sat there and listened to it, and I'm like, wow, this is very interesting because it is very informative about all of that. So I love that.
Yeah.
So getting back to like people that are not familiar with maybe initiate like initially talking to like the non-human intelligence, like kind of how, if somebody was interested in kind of learning more about it, how would somebody begin safely to kind of connect with the non-human intelligence?
Yeah, and I love the keyword of safely. And I think it is important to emphasize that because you can open your consciousness up to all sorts of different things that exist. I'm a really big fan of heart-centered work because every chakra that we have, like every energy system within us is a portal. And I know, a lot of people these days are familiar with things like Reiki and chakras and Deepak Chopra talks about it and that sort of thing. So it's become a little bit more mainstream. But what a lot of people don't know is that there's a deeper layer to that. And so when you go into your portal that is inside your heart, there is an entire multidimensional landscape in there that allows you to connect with any being in the universe. And the way that this gets facilitated is through what I call the language of consciousness. Now, consciousness itself it's very vast. It's like I mean, we could liken it to, maybe you're trying to learn Russian and I don't speak Russian, and so you have to learn the language, right? I mean, if I were going to Russia, I'd have to learn the language. And so
Right.
consciousness has a language, it has a way that it interfaces with the human senses. And a lot of the time, that interfacing happens through visualization, some symbolic languaging, through the inner senses, like your clairaudience, your clairvoyance, those sorts of things. So these they make up the language of consciousness through which you interact with consciousness as a human. And so when you go into your inner heart, your heart portal, that offers you a very symbolic, a very structured, methodical way that you can access what we call this higher fifth dimensional frequency through which this consciousness and contact can actually be made and you can have that connection in that space.
Okay. Now, would that be, is that very similar to light language, or no, that's completely different?
Well, light language is one of the modalities of contact. But again, there are lots of different styles of light language, the way that people communicate with light language or the way they bring it through. When we go through the heart portal, you can still receive light language. But I find that the mechanism is a little bit different. And we're getting into real nuances here, Lauren, because we're really talking about the difference between communication in a lucid state versus communicating while channeling. And a lot of light language occurs through a channeled state, rather than being in a more lucid state. So that's probably the key difference with a lot of the styles that are out there.
Okay. Yeah. I was just curious. I mean, I kind of figured it was just the channeled, but I was like, I was curious if that could be considered, which, thank you for that because it seems like it is. Um, so getting back to the galactic consciousness. Now, how do you, or how do you do, I'm assuming that you teach others to do this, embody it in daily lives, like as a human and activating this earth plane? Like how could somebody do
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, the first thing is to recognize that these beings, they really are in many instances our own families and our own soul aspects, and they're connected to us. This is where the spirituality aspect comes in because we are all one. We're in this shared consciousness. We're really not that separate, even as humans, but even, expanding that, we're not separate to the galactic beings either. And so if we are part of the same consciousness, we can experience this oneness, this connectedness. And so the integration piece comes in actually recognizing that it's like we're finally reconnecting with aspects of our own self, aspects of our own human evolution. Like it's like imagine you had this long lost sister that you never knew about and finally you're reconnected. Well, that would change your life, right? So
that?
it's kind of like that.
Hey there, I just wanted to take a quick moment to share with all of you spiritual rebels and fempreneurs. If you've been craving a space where you can build wealth, heal trauma, and rise alongside like-minded women, I got something for you to hear about. I'm excited to invite you into the Enlightened Misfits Sisterhood. This is a low-cost, high-impact group membership designed exclusively for spiritual fempreneurs who know they need accountability and support to create sustainable wealth but aren't ready to dive into a one-on-one mentorship. In this membership, you'll get monthly calls, rituals, healing sessions, and workshops to break through your self-doubt and build confidence so that you can consistently sell your offers and make money. This is also a collaborative private Facebook community where you make lifelong connections with other women who are just as serious as hitting their goals. And my personal guidance as your intuitive human design business guide and trauma healer, ensuring you stay aligned and on track with your business goals. Plus, you'll get free access to all my paid workshops and masterclasses, along with exclusive VIP pricing for my one-on-one Voxer membership. This membership is all about helping you heal the sabotaging behaviors blocking your abundance and using your human design to create a business that feels amazing to run. Imagine waking up excited to serve your clients and knowing that you have the exact support you need to hit every single one of your business goals every single month. So if you're ready to rise and build wealth with a sisterhood of spiritual misfits, make sure you click the registration link in the description box. Right now, the investment is just $88 a month, but the price will increase to $197 a month. Join today to unlock exclusive rates and get access to next month's kickoff call. Let's get back to today's episode, but remember, your next level is just one decision away. Join the sisterhood and let's rise together.
Now, most of, like we talked about before we started recording, let's kind of get into like how you your experience as an entrepreneur and how you kind of help other entrepreneurs too, with the work that you do. How do you kind of incorporate all of that into what you do like on a daily basis?
Yeah, great question. So a lot of my work is with entrepreneurs because I really do feel that entrepreneurs, we are leading the new way into this new earth. And we're creating the systems, the structures through entrepreneurship, through creating mission-based, value-based businesses that are going to have real world transformation and impact. And one of the biggest aspects of that is if you're going to create something that's life-changing, transformative, whether you're in the coaching space, the leadership space, whether you're working with other people in, any sort of transformation or connection or expansion, when you yourself have expanded into your higher self and your galactic connection, whatever you bring through, whether it's a product, a service, a message, whatever you bring through is going to start coming through a higher frequency. And so that connection piece, getting connected to your higher self, getting connected to your soul aspects, remembering your lineage, your ancestry, your galactic connections, that becomes pivotal to the actual thing that you bring through. And the business is just the vehicle that allows you to do that. It's the frequency that comes first, and the more connected you are, the more expansive your work is going to become in the way that you can service others in humanity.
Yeah. Now, I feel like this has been a thing that I've noticed within my own clients and probably within my own journey is frequency.
Mm.
And a lot, I know I've had some, me personally, I had some lessons on mentors and picking the wrong mentors and not kind of ex- not listening to the expiration date of my mentors and keeping them around and things drama happening and all this stuff, all the things that I needed to learn, right? So can you kind of speak on frequency and like what that means? Like let me kind of let me make this question a little bit like different. So what does frequency mean to you? That's my question. And I'm starting to notice that these people that are faking frequency, it's not something that you can fake. So what does frequency mean to you, and how does it look like? What does frequency look like in somebody's business? Like, because I hear a lot of my clients are like, well, frequency, it's like I need to be on this frequency, and it's like What is your perspective on all of that?
Yeah, well, I think you've hit the nail on the head in that frequency can't be faked. You either have it or you don't, right? And it's the vibration that you put out to the universe. Now everybody actually is always sending out a frequency. It's just what frequency are you setting? What bandwidth are you tuning into? Are you sending out fear? Are you sending out love? Are you sending out hope? Are you sending out gratitude? Because all of these different energies have different frequencies. So we're always vibrating something. It's
Right.
just, are
Yeah.
you aware of what your vibration is and what are you putting out there? What are you placing into the field of consciousness? What are you radiating? Because each of us are conscious creators. We're not just receiving energy from the universe, we are transmitting all the time as well. Your thoughts, your emotions, they all contribute to your vibration, even your health. If you look after your body and you eat, healthy foods and you nourish yourself and you exercise, that sends a vibration of self-love out to the universe. So all of these things contribute and they create this ripple of energy that goes out. And then what goes out is what comes back. And that's the magnetic nature of vibration as well. And when you're tuned into the energy, you can feel the resonance between yourself and someone else, and you can sense, is this person actually vibrating or are they just talking about energy and not really doing it? It becomes very easy to gauge the difference in that because you can feel the energy regardless of what they say.
Right. Yeah. Literally that's kind of like, yeah, yeah. Thank you for that. Because I had a situation, it had to have been like probably a month ago now, that I could feel the energy of fear. It wasn't my fear. I knew it wasn't mine. And it was more of like, I have to fake it until I make it kind of thing. And I noticed that it was kind of like something that they were going through. Now, this was another mentor of mine. So I had kind of was like, I love you. I have to go this way kind of thing, just because I needed to disconnect, because it was more of like this whole time I was thinking you're talking about frequency, you're high vibe, but you keep a track. Like that was the thing. I noticed what people attract, obviously that can equal the vibration or the frequency that they're kind of giving out, or like a lesson that they need to learn, right? So then I realized, well, if you're quote unquote high vibe, because none of us really are high vibe all the time, like we have, that's just not, I feel like that's not part of the human experience all the time. We have to get through all those, lower end vibrational things, not stay there, right? But kind of go through it to experience it. And I noticed that it kept happening and happening. And I was like, wait a second. There's something like there was like, and then as soon as Neptune went into retrograde, I seen the truth. Like it was like, oh, okay. So I couldn't see through the illusion that I was being put in, kind of thing. So I do think that it's really important that when you just said about, can't fake vibration, because you can't. Do you agree that, when you feel somebody's vibration, that's literally what they're attracting, why they keep going through what they're going through? Like if an entrepreneur came to you and said, I'm stuck in my business, I can't make money, like what kind of are the things that you would kind of walk them through to kind of get them out of that?
It's a really common one that we see quite a lot actually, especially in my introductory event when we do the 5 days to 5D and we do the transmissions and stuff. That's probably like the number one thing that I get asked. And so like specifically for the money block, the first thing I always look at is where in the energy field is that being stored? Because I guarantee there's a blockage in one of the chakras and there's a physical sensation that's connected to that. And then behind that, there's a limiting belief or something that is keeping that stagnant energy there. It could be a trauma, it could be a belief, it could be something that they picked up in childhood that has become almost like an assumption for them that's not necessarily true. So that's kind of like the process as you go from the sensation, the energy to then what's behind that. And then sure enough, once you get that clarity, it becomes very easy to then make a conscious decision. And then once you see it, you go, oh, well, do I still want that in my life or am I ready to let it go? And then, of course, you can bring in a number of tools, like energy tools, or you can do some shifting around limiting beliefs. You can do some journaling. There are lots of ways to shift that energy once you have identified what that is.
Yeah. Now, would you also say another common block is emotional blocks too? I usually see emotional blocks and money blocks a lot. Like,
Yeah, they definitely go hand in hand. And I think, again, part of that human experience is we do experience the emotional body quite strongly. And for a lot of people, it's like even though their heart energy is so beautiful, and I see that in everyone. I see everybody's heart star just radiating so bright, like all the time. I wish everyone else could see what I see, because I see that all the time.
yeah,
But then, I mean, and that's at the very core. But then outside of that is like it's like this cloud of emotion and doubt and those things that feel dense in the energy field. And so what I do is first and foremost is I look straight through the core of all of that and I see the real them. I see the real you. I see the real frequency. I see the heart star, that beautiful source light that everybody has. That in itself is really important because when you see that, they become that, right? When you what you place on people, that
yeah,
it's almost like a projection, but when you see that on them, they start to become that. And then it's just looking at, well, what are the things that they've placed around that? And yeah, a lot of the time it is emotional, it is beliefs, it is mental constructs, it is habits that are not serving them, or energies that are stuck. And then it's just there's a combination of all of that. So then it's just sort of working out like which are the layers that need to get removed so that we can come back into that natural source frequency that we already are.
yeah. I was gonna say I had chills when she was like, when you were like, I can see them. I'm like, oh gosh, she could see me. My higher self was like, oh, she can see you.
I do see
Yeah,
everyone. I read people like a book. I mean, it's just for me, it's obvious, and some people feel a bit shy about it, but like for me, it's normal and natural to see people's inner light because,
yeah,
I guess because I see my light, then I can see other people's light, and it is the first thing that I see. I mean, outside of everything else that people have going on, the first thing I see is this beautiful soul, this beautiful light, no matter who it is, and that just it makes it easier sometimes to sort of navigate this weird reality that we're in. So.
yeah. No, I definitely, somebody actually just said that the other day to me, Lauren, how do you see the good in people? I said, well, it's the first thing I see, like you said. However, I had to also put bound, not client wise, but like in people in my life, people also see that in me. So they're like, oh, how can, this was before, yeah, I knew what boundaries were. This was before I knew I'm going to do this for myself. I'm going to like leave this for my own peace, that kind of thing. But, in a coaching session, or if I just like simply can, like kindness, like if I see somebody sad, or it's like, helping somebody or whatever, if it's just out in public, it's just that simple little thing that I could hold a door or say
Mm.
something kind about what their, if I like their hair or their outfit or something like that. Like, I just feel like that could, turn around somebody's bad day. I don't know what anybody's, I don't know what they're going through. So it's like, I just always felt like picking kindness was always easy for me, versus talking about somebody or being mean to somebody or whatever. Like, I was never that mean girl, and I don't like that, mean girl energy, same thing with my daughter. Like, that's what I'm trying to teach her too, that like she's very kind to people, but also helping her to understand that not everybody is like her. She can't expect everybody to be like her, So yeah, I'm the same way. I always see people's light because I can see my own. And sometimes, you need that as like a mentor, coach, healer, whatever, when you're working with, I feel like, people, wherever they're going through or whatever, journey there or path that they're on, that one thing that you can see that they can't see. I mean, I can't see everything, I can't see my shadows. That's why having a mentor is, you know, important. But at the same time, it's just like sometimes you just need that person to be like, I can see you. I see that you're doing this. Because you're like, is this like world, like what's going on? Is this real? Is what I'm seeing real?
Yep.
Especially nowadays. Yeah. I kind of wanted to get into the when you sent over your stuff and you talked a little bit about the peaceful open contract in 2027. What can you kind of explain, like what of the biggest collective shifts that we need as a collective to do to make this happen?
Yeah, well, I think first and foremost, it's recommitting ourselves to being loving and kind in our own hearts and doing the best that we can with the skills and resources that we have, and choosing that in a moment to moment basis. And also, it's about consciously choosing the peaceful open contact as well. I always say to people this vision that we have that I promote all the time, and I'm not the only person talking about it. Since I got that message a few years ago, I've seen a lot of other channelers talking about this 2027 timeline. People are now even talking about 2026, which I've been feeling a bit of that shift as well. So I totally get that. But also one thing that the Galactic family always say to me as well is it's not a prediction, it's a vision. It's a vision that we actively work towards. So every action, every show that I get on, every person that does my 5 days to 5D event, every person that I help enter their inner heart, and so many other actions that we can be taking, these are things that are going to help us move the needle. And the collective shift really comes down to, if I can be blunt for a moment, we're going to pull our heads out of our asses and start looking at the world that's bigger than us. There's so much more out there. We need to get over the poverty and the war. We need to really start looking at us as humans, and valuing and prioritizing our human evolution above everything else. And there's different levels of consciousness in that. Like the majority of people, I would say, in the mainstream, and you see this in our governments and stuff as well. It's very much this attitude of I'm gonna keep what's mine, and me and my resources, and me and my military, and me and my this, and me and my land, and me and my that, and it's a very like personal attitude. It's very small, it's very closed-minded. And so when we start to think globally, and we start to think in a capacity of what is best for the greater collective, not just within a city or even a nation, but what if we open up those boundaries and those barriers to look at Earth as a whole? Maybe we will start to make decisions that aren't destructive to the Earth, that aren't destroying our oceans, that aren't putting more money into military than education. I mean, all that stuff is preposterous. The galactic civilizations look at that, and they see it as a very uncivil uncivil way to do things. I mean, they've been there themselves, but that's the level that we're at right now. And so we've got a bit of a way to go, where we start to prioritize our evolution, we start to prioritize our unity, our collective coming together above the separation mentality. That's really what it comes down to. It's unity over separation, and that is what this lift in frequency is all about.
Yeah. And I definitely see that shift happening. Like, I've heard about the 2026, the one that you were just talking about. But so I thought it was interesting when you had put in the 2027 or 2027, because I feel like me personally, I just always question that, like, why do people feel like they own electric? Why do they feel like they own land? Why do they feel like they own this? And it's just like, I never really understood. It's like, this is Earth. Nobody owns it. And it's like, how do you own a country? How do you own, like, it never really made sense to me. So I always questioned it, but nobody could really give me that answer, because I don't think anybody knows that answer. It's not, I just feel like, same thing when I hear people say, oh, what about the United States? Or what about this country? What about that country? But like, what about the world? Here's me. What about the world? Like, who cares about, we just live in this country. That's it. That's where we live. It's like, but what about the world? And people, when I say that, people don't really know how to respond, because it's just like, oh, yeah, what about the world? Because
Yeah,
it's
well,
like that separation. And I feel like, as much as the governments and all that try to keep us separated, which keeps you in fear and control, I feel like that is that's what's that's changing. And I think, and I love that, because it's like, I can see that that's exactly what's happening and changing and shifting. So awesome.
yeah, and I think that many of the indigenous tribes actually had a really good understanding of this, because some of them, they don't talk about land ownership. They say that we're custodians of the land. It's up to us to come, and for the period of time that we are here on Earth, we look after the Earth. How can we own it? We're gonna leave, and in 80, 90 years we leave. Like, that's it, it's finished. You can't own anything, if anything, the land owns us, for the period of time that we're on it. So like, we're gonna bugger off, and but in that time that we are here, our duty, our responsibility is to look after the place that we've been given as a gift to actually be on. And that's really coming from that mentality of heaven on earth, where this is the Garden of Eden, this is the paradise. We're supposed to be looking after it, working with it, being in harmony with that. And I think some of the older tribes and the older cultures, I think they had a stronger understanding of that, which has kind of been lost a little bit along the way with the modern ways of doing things.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's probably where I feel like I was a shaman or, something always in a past life. And I feel like that's why I was drawn to the shamanic journey, because I always wanted to get to the root cause of things. So I feel like that, I mean, and I feel like if you always like to get to the root cause and change it, you don't really need to go through the shamanic journey to call yourself a shamanic practitioner. I feel like it could just be innately in you. But I feel like this lifetime anyway, I was really drawn to go down that path because, I feel very connected to earth. I feel very connected to helping other people kind of help the earth and be earth keepers and, all that stuff. So yeah, that makes sense when you say that I'm like, why was I always so connected to earth? And it's because like you just said, it was more of like, I'm here to help preserve it versus own it. I mean, it would be always nice to have land, have my own space and, own it. Obviously, I'm not owning it, but, to have a piece of land that, I could, help and however I, see fit. But at the same time, it's just like I heard you say that, I was like, oh, that's probably why I feel
Mm.
that way.
Yeah, that's cool.
Like to help shift it and, um, you know, help preserve it, I should say. So yeah.
Mm.
So before we wrap up here, can you kind of tell like the listeners if they listen to you gave a lot of wisdom and knowledge throughout this. So if somebody wants to come work with you, how can they find you, where they can find you, and do you have anything that they can um, do before reaching out to you to see if it's a good fit for you to work with you?
Yeah, well, we do have an introductory event that we run on a regular basis. It's called 5 Days to 5D. It's a taster event. It's like $50 for 5 days. I mean, you get a lot of value in that. And yeah, so the website for that is www.5daysto5d.com with the number five both times. But if you just want to really just get more information as well, you can also just check out the podcast. If you head over to my YouTube channel, you can just Google Eesha Patel, Eesha Patel, and we've got the YouTube channel with the First Contact podcast. And on that show, I do interview a lot of leaders in the field of galactic consciousness. And also we dabble a little bit into near-death experiences and things like that. So it's a really fascinating way. If you're really at that early stages of the journey, you can learn more information. And then when you're ready to actually experience it yourself, you can come along to one of our intro events.
Oh, I love that. I love that you also talk about near-death experiences. There's a couple episodes that I've talked about near-death experiences because I think that it's more widely accepted now. So it's like, you can kind of like talk about it a little bit. And I know I had three. So it's like, it's always nice to have other people share their experience too and the different perspectives on death. So that's awesome. So make sure you go check all of that out. I'll make sure to drop, if you're listening to this, you can check out her links in the description box, or if you're watching this on YouTube, they'll be there too. So before we end, is there like a nugget of wisdom that you can leave our listeners before we go?
I would love to just share with everyone that contact is for everyone. It really is. It's just like learning Spanish, Russian, learning how to cook. People think when it comes to this woo-woo esoteric stuff that you need to be born special, you need to have psychic powers, and you just don't. What you need is the right tools, the right guidance, and in an amount of time, you will learn how to do this. So let yourself just allow yourself the opportunity to explore the journey. And if it does resonate for you, just know that you can do it. Everyone can do it. You just need to take that first step. So that's my invitation to anyone who's watching or listening today.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us on today's episode with Eesha on the Enlightened Misfits podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe. Make sure you check out all of her links in her podcast. Leave a review and share this with somebody that you feel that would gain knowledge from listening. Stay tuned for more captivating conversations in the future. I hope you have an amazing rest of your week, and I will see you next week.